The Cincinnati Bengals finished their season with 2 games at home, and they're out of the playoff picture. So why are those games still important? Let's break that down, starting with this week's game against the Cardinals.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. He's James Rapien. I'm Jake Liscow. We've had you covered here on Locked On Bengals as your daily source for all things Bengals, going all the way back to 2016. And as we wrap up this Christmas week with the Bengals getting ready to host the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday, first, hope you all had a nice Christmas if you celebrated a nice little holiday week, if that's part of your life. We got some messages from some people in the Locked On Bengals Insider group wishing us happy holidays, Merry Christmas as well. So returning that to everyone out there that makes Locked On Bengals part of the routine, all the everydayers, all of you who make Locked On Bengals your first listen. We're going to be diving into what's important as the Bengals prepare to face the Cardinals in a game that's relatively meaningless for both teams in terms of the win-loss. But even the win-loss matters a little bit too, especially when you look at where the Bengals sit in draft positioning and how these games are affecting draft positioning. I've been looking at it, James, personally, with an assumption that the Bengals will win their final 2 games and looking at everything around them and kind of evaluating what will that do? Will that knock them out of the top 10? What else needs to happen to keep them in the top 10? That'll be a point of conversation here at some point as well. But one of the things from an on-field perspective that's going to matter is some of these young players that we're continuing to watch for more progress, more development, continued signs of, in many cases, this player should be part of what they're building around in 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, it's huge. It's far more important than the results. Because if you tell me that winning 3 straight is going to impact the offseason in the 2026 Bengals, well, I'm going to show you a bunch of history where that doesn't matter. And Jamar Chase said it, and there are going to be people that say, oh, it matters and it's going to impact things. And it does not matter. It does not matter. Not one bit. Not one bit do I believe that the 2024 Bengals going 5-0 down the stretch impacted this season at all. And if anything, with the Bengals, you could say, oh, well, they could trick themselves into thinking that they're closer than they are. And right now, Joe Burrow is 4-2 as a starter. He gets to 6-2. They go into the offseason and it's like, right? You don't feel good about it. But what I do think you can do is feel good about specific performances, about players that may be ascending, about players that finish strong. And I think Myles Murphy is really the guy here to look at. And it's like, man, the past 6 weeks, 7 weeks, it feels great. It feels like the not just the best that we've seen from Myles Murphy, but like it feels like he can be a piece moving forward. And so for him, can you finish strong? Can you get after Jacoby Brissett on Sunday? Can you get a couple of sacks in front of the hometown crowd that does show up? And you better believe that's going to be a lot of diehards. And then those diehards are going to be like, man, 99's come on in year 3 and be excited about Myles Murphy going into year 4. So I think that's where this is like developmental wise, like who's developing in their development. Do those flashes show up? And Myles Murphy's the one where it's like, man, if he could just finish this year strong, what a 180 from where we viewed him 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago. And honestly, DJ Turner, the same. People were dunking on DJ Turner all training camp long, like just dunking on, he's given up. Like now everyone thinks of the one practice where he had the 5 pass breakups. But outside of that, everyone's like, I've seen way too much DJ Turner on the other side of guys catching passes. And it's been a complete 180 now. He's clearly their number 1 corner. I'm not saying Myles Murphy will be their number 1 pass rusher next year. You don't want that. But maybe he can be a true piece and a real pass rusher for you. Certainly feels like it. So that's my like high level thought process when it comes to this. Like the win-loss doesn't matter, but what happens on the field can certainly matter for some of these young guys that are trying to establish themselves.
And the win-loss does matter a little bit. Like we said, like we're going to look at draft positioning here and what's going on around them. The Chiefs don't look like they have a hope in the world, but they do play the Raiders next week. And if there's one team that will tank your tank, it might be the Raiders this year. Myles Murphy is a prime example, like you said, of the players we're looking for that continued development for. Can he continue to finish the season strong? Coming off one of his best games, if not unambiguously his best game as a pro, especially in run defense, had a very Sam Hubbard looking game, right? Wasn't necessarily winning a ton as a pass rusher, making a ton of plays in the run game, in the screen game, the hustles there, those plays all showing up. And him playing more physical football is something that we've been talking about. And I think I've said it on this podcast numerous times. We've been talking about, can Myles play more physical? Can he play more aggressive football? And he's been doing that. And it's, it's not perfect. Nobody's saying it's perfect. He's not out there winning like Trey Hendrickson. But he's shown that he's absolutely a player that can be part of a successful NFL defense. The problem is the Bengals just have a lot of those kind of guys right now, and they're not a successful NFL defense. But between Myles and BJ Hill, who is back at practice on Friday, who's going to be on this team next year, as the Bengals gave him a multi-year deal last offseason, the cornerback development we've seen from DJ Turner over the course of this season, him emerging as a leader, Dax Hill continuing to play good corner, have one rough game in the transition back to outside corner after he'd been playing in the slot. He's been really good since then. Good enough that I went back and found our Mike Potts interview from 2022 after the Bengals drafted Dax and clipped that interview. That was fun to revisit, as I asked Mike Potts at the time, because there was a big conversation when the Bengals drafted Dax Hill. Can he play corner? Because he was an overhang. He played this different position in college and all these things. Obviously bounced around a lot. And again, like I thought he could play outside corner when I watched his Michigan tape from a physical skill set perspective. And that looks like something he can do in the NFL. So the Bengals have all these building blocks on defense. They just need the really high-end playmakers or the consistency guys. Then maybe you see them take a step. We're going to stay on the defense here. I got some stats for you, James. And then there are some players on offense from a development perspective, especially Amarius Mims, Dylan Fairchild, that we should talk about as well. But I went back and looked at some stats that I've been tracking for this defense all season. When we've been saying stuff like this is the worst defense in the last 25 years, the worst success rate in the last 25 years, all those sorts of stats that we've talked about before. Well, they've improved in some of those categories slightly. They're no longer the worst in any of them. The one that is the worst for them is still yards per play. But in their last 5 games, since their bye week in week 10, 6 games, from week 10 to week 16, the Bengals defense is up to 22nd in success rate, 19th in EPA per play, 16th in third down conversions allowed, 12th in points per game allowed. They've given up a lot of offensive touchdowns. Like when the offense is on the field, they're just giving up 20.5 defensive points per game. Their sack rate is up to 12th in that time. And the thing that's been really exceptional for this defense in that time, James, is they're only giving up a touchdown in 50% of goal to go situations, which ranks 3rd in the NFL in that time. So there has been some progress from a results perspective when you look at this defense, and when you talk about the way Myles Murphy has come on, Joseph Osai, who doesn't look like he's got a good chance to play against Arizona. He wasn't practicing on Friday either. But some of these pieces kind of coming together. Al Golden figuring some things out as a blitzer, as a play caller. And you're seeing some potential signs of development in games that did include some meaningful games, right? Like we talked about the plays they made against the Patriots, the first Baltimore game, and those things, and kind of discarding a little bit the dead cat bounce here at the end of the season against some bad teams. There's been some signs of progress.
I'm going to respond to that in my fear about the progress, and I'll say that in air quotes for those listening that can't see progress. We'll do that, and we'll get to the offense, of course, because offense wins championships coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. Well, for a reason. You want odds, you want props, you want live game odds. Well, that is the beauty of FanDuel. They have all of the odds in one spot. In NFL Sundays, they fly by. We only have a couple of more NFL Sundays in the regular season. And guess what? FanDuel is the perfect time to get in on all of the action, all of the live betting, and games can switch on a dime, and that's when you can dive in with FanDuel. You can do same game parlays, you can do live prop bets, and so much more. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL bets all season long. The Bengals, obviously favored over the Cardinals. A lot of people expecting them to handle business. The over-under set at 53.5. Hammer. I say the over. I think we're going to see a ton of scoring, Jake, on Sunday. So we'll see. Regardless of how you feel, get in on all the fun at FanDuel.com.
We're also brought to you today by Game Time. The Bengals finished the season with 2 home games, and if, despite everything that's happened this year, you want to go watch Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Amarius Mims, Myles Murphy, the emergence of some players on this defense and an offense that has been hitting, well, tickets are going to be real easy for you to deal with the Game Time app. You get the advantage back. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You can pull up the Game Time app, check out the upcoming couple of games, and you'll get great ticket options immediately. It's intuitive for comparing and buying tickets. It takes just a couple of minutes to find the best deals, and zone deals really stand out. You can pick your section, and Game Time will pick the seats, saving you even more money. And fees are included up front, so the price you see is exactly what you pay. You can take the guesswork out of buying tickets for NFL games or any other sort of event with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off with Game Time on the app today, and get back to being their life.
All right, Jake. So my fear is very, very simple. And the everydayer certainly know. And if you've been a Bengals fan for a long time, you certainly know. I don't think they're close on defense. They should sign probably 2 defensive linemen, BJ Hill aside. I don't care that he's under contract. And there's plenty of time to talk about it. But like 2 defensive linemen, they need a splash player there that can consistently get after the quarterback. At least one, which I know that's hard to find. I don't know how you would or why you would trust their linebackers without getting at least one guy that can start right away. And Geno Stone, by the way, they should just bench Geno Stone. He shouldn't play and start on Sunday against the Cardinals. That's not going to be the case, but he's not going to be here. I think they plan on re-signing Tyson Anderson. Why not see if he could give you anything there? Maybe you think it's PJ Jules or Dejon Anthony. Fine. Any of those. I don't care. Geno Stone better not be here next year. And so that to me, I don't want this coaching staff, which everyone blames Duke, and I think ownership deserves some blame, and I think the coaching staff deserves some blame as well. Like, they went into last offseason like, new coach, we'll revamp it, we're going to get more out of these guys. And that was pretty much it. And like, there's no way in hell Zach Taylor should have endorsed Geno Stone coming back. There was none. And yet, I'm pretty sure he was on board with that. Makes no sense. Makes no sense that you don't add a bona fide linebacker if it's that valuable. They didn't do that. And so they go into the draft, a weak linebacker draft, and feel like they need to force it. It is scary to me for them, because you're right. They'll look at those stats. And I do think that at least some people in the building are like, yeah, we aren't that far away. You just see some of these go, yeah, we aren't that far away. We're a player here, player there. And it's like, those better be some damn good players, because I like 3 or 4 guys that I'm pretty confident in next year. But there aren't many where I'm like, oh, well, that guy's definitely starting. Put it in Sharpie. And that's where I'm at when it comes to this defense. And I'm sick of talking about it. It's become the offensive line. You know, the past couple of years, I've been sick of talking about the offensive line. And they've kind of solved that issue, knock on wood. I need this defense they need to figure it out. And to me, the only way you figure it out is by adding proven talent.
Hard to do, like you said. Free agency, and this is a conversation for a couple of weeks from now. Free agency just continues to get worse in terms of quality of players available, guys actually reaching free agency. There's like 1 or 2 every year. Go look at last year's list of top free agents. It's pretty ugly with the results that teams are getting from those guys. But I hear your fear. I echo your fear. It's something that we've talked about for the last 2 years. is this idea that these late season results are very meaningful. We've seen this team
Josh
repeatedly.
Sweat is good.
Yeah,
I
there's
thought
one.
about that. I thought about that the other day because that was the Trey Hendrickson. Like, if you trade Trey, like, go get Josh Sweat, and like that would have worked for them had they done it. Yeah.
Or people would have talked about Milton Williams, and Milton Williams has been fine, but not like franchise-changing defensive tackle for New England, for example.
And he's been hurt. Yeah, but yeah, sure.
And
Milton
that's
Williams,
part of
by
the
the way,
risk of
I'd
free
take him.
agency.
No
Of course
doubt.
you take him. But the point is that like when we get to free agency, I recently was looking at this in the last week or so, and like a lot of the guys just that got paid a lot of money. I mean, you got to overpay for B minus C level players in free agency a lot of time. And the Bengals need that, don't get me wrong, but like the idea of overpaying for them is challenging to stomach. And so much of this goes back to the draft. But as far as your fear, again, probably a conversation for another day to dive into in depth. Like when I hear some of this stuff from Zach Taylor, from Al Golden talking about the progress of this defense, that is where that fear comes from, right? Is like,
Yes.
oh yeah, these linebackers since the bye week, like, man, they are not better enough. You're betting on yourself so hard to just go into the season with these linebackers next year. And we've seen them do it is a problem. Like we've seen them have these very rosy evaluations of their own guys, not on the defensive side of the ball necessarily, although this year you could argue that. In the past, it's been offensive line stuff. It's continuing on the offensive line actually with Cody Ford, who is a player that I really want to see replaced and improved upon in 2026, because when we saw him out there, every time we've seen him out there this year, it's just so looks like the same Cody Ford, even though he does everything the way this coaching staff likes. And so being really honest with themselves about how they need to improve should be very obvious. Shouldn't require a radical degree of self-honesty. But it seems like with this team, it kind of does.
Yeah. And that's it. It is, don't try to sell me. And if maybe they beat the Cardinals 35-7 on Sunday and the defense plays well and Jacoby Brissett's playing well. And we covered it in the crossover. So I'm like, Trey McBride, I don't think they hold him to 7, but let's just say, okay, all right. It still doesn't mean like everything I've said. I don't think anything can happen over the next 2 weeks where I don't feel like they need to add to all 3 levels and go that route. And yeah, you might not find the next Trey Hendrickson in this year's crop of free agents, but you can find quality pieces. And I hope, like, if we're sitting here in April and we're talking about them adding one external defensive free agent, that's like a real guy that's going to start for them. Well, thanks. I hate it. Like it's, and so that's all. Now
going into the draft with these repeated desperate needs that force their hand, like can't do it. Got to stop.
Can't do it. And we mentioned the offense, and I clumsily will go to the offense now. Amarius Mims continues to play really, really well. And even if you want to look at the PFF stuff, which I always take with a grain of salt, but has a lot of green in there. The past 5 weeks, you're talking in the 70 range. His overall score is almost up to a 64 on the season. Trending in the right direction. Would love to see him handle business this week and continue that, because if he does, well, now we're talking about their 2022 first round pick finally finding his footing in Dax Hill, 2023 first round pick Myles Murphy ascending, and then your 2024 first round pick in Amarius Mims playing at a high level. Like it starts to come together some with a lot of the draft criticism that they've taken. You look at it and it's like, oh, well, they are good players. You need to get to the good part faster, of course, which is a big thing that for Shemar Stewart, he's going to have to be really good next year. But this year, Amarius Mims has certainly fared much better than I think some expected. I think we've always had high expectations for Amarius Mims, and he's starting to deliver.
Yeah, I think he's been really good lately. I agree. Shemar Stewart, a name we definitely should have mentioned as far as things that matter. Good shout bringing that one up. Like how he plays in these last 2 games, getting some development for him. It is relatively small in the grand scheme, but just getting that continued development definitely matters there. Dylan Fairchild, that'll be another one here as we wrap up with the offense and some of the things that we'll be watching for there. And apparently the Pro Bowl was announced this week. I barely caught it. One Bengal in the initial list of Pro Bowlers. We'll get to some Pro Bowl chatter, and I just want to quickly take a peek at the Tankathon stuff, the draft order stuff, as we wrap up this episode here coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy the way it should be. And if you're like me and you've been eliminated and you're not playing for fantasy championships, what's the perfect time to get in on Prize Picks? Because all you do is pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. So Trey McBride is probably going to shred the Bengals, Jake, right? So picking the more on his receiving yards or receptions, I would feel pretty good about that. Maybe you think that Joe Burrow is going to throw for 400 plus yards, so you go with more on his player projection. Boom, you could just put those 2 together, and that's it. That's the fun with Prize Picks, and you can choose from a huge range of unique stats. You could go with fantasy score if you wanted to. You could go with turnovers. You could combine it with Steph Curry free throws made if you wanted to go in between sports. That's the beauty of Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
On the offensive side of the ball, we got there with Amarius Mims. Just excited to see this offensive line finish the season strong. Hopefully they should do that this week. Calais Campbell on the other side for the Arizona Cardinals obviously is a menace that we would have liked to have seen playing for the Cincinnati Bengals for the last, 5 years, forever. Zaven Collins is the other guy on this defensive line who will potentially create some problems for you. Baron Browning has been more of a problem for this team in my memory for some reason than I think he probably should be. The Bengals avoid Walter Nolan this week. We could get an Akeem Davis-Gaither revenge game for the Arizona Cardinals over there. But for Dylan Fairchild and Amarius Mims, those guys have been playing for their experience level in the NFL. You're seeing the progress for those guys. And the offensive line as a collective has people talking about just bring Dalton Risner back, bolster the depth, and we're good to go for 2026. Yeah. And feels like a pretty reasonable plan. Like maybe getting a left tackle that may be able to challenge to start next year in 2027 is something that they could consider with their offseason plan if it aligns. But for the starters who have been remarkably healthy and knock on wood there, but they've had good offensive line health this year, which isn't necessarily something you can count on every year. Those guys have been good, and it's been fun to watch those guys really have the light bulb come on in the second half of the season, and whether that's Scott Peters or the players themselves or some combination, seeing that continue to finish the season this week, especially next week, much tougher with Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns, is something that you got to be looking forward to watching, because you know who Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase are, and Mike Gesicki and Chase Brown. Like, you know who all those guys are. So if the offensive line can finish the season as strong as they have, that's something that I think can affect your offseason plans a little bit, with Dalton Risner in mind in particular for that one.
Man, those are the type of signings, though, like the Dalton Risner signing. Like, how good does that feel now? And that's what you need. You need some of those level signings on defense. Obviously, you might not be able to hit the grand slam type of signing like Trey Hendrickson was or whoever, but Risner has been such a huge part of this and playing well. And give him that multi-year contract he's been looking for quite some time now. I don't want to be talking about losing Dalton Risner in free agency. So hopefully they can do that. And if they do, you're right. Like, you might use a draft pick, an early pick on an offensive lineman, but you feel good about where they're at. You'd have a Jalen Rivers behind. By the way, Matt Lee was activated this week. I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
That, he's back around. We'll see. Maybe they want to try to get him some reps in that finale against the Browns. Like that's what I would assume would be the thought process there. Or they just want to get him some practice time before going to the offseason. Either way, interesting to see that. But this offensive line, I feel pretty good about it. And that's what sucks. That's the other reminder here. It sucks that they have this good of an offensive line. Joe Burrow is healthy now, and they're 5-10. Like it sucks. Last thing before we get into the tankathon stuff is, at least for me, I also am going to just enjoy watching Joe.
Yeah.
Last week in Miami, I went into that game. I'm like, all right, whatever the hell that was against the Ravens, it's not going to happen again. And so, yeah, let's watch Joe, Jamar, T. By the way, T. Higgins, 1 touchdown away from setting a new career high. He's only one of 3 Bengals receivers to have back-to-back seasons of double-digit touchdowns, joining A.J. Green and Carl Pickens. Carl Pickens did it 3 straight years, but T had 10 touchdowns last year, 10 this year. We'll see if he can get 11 on Sunday. Jamar Chase, by the way, hasn't had a touchdown since October 16th.
Yeah,
so
crazy.
They need to get him a touchdown. Just some notes that were in my head here.
Crazy that there's only been, you said that there's only been 2 Bengals that have back-to-back seasons with 10 plus touchdowns in their history. For all of their decorated
Chad didn't do it.
History, that's crazy. Jamar hasn't done it yet. Is kind
Isaac
of crazy.
Curtis. Jamar hasn't done it
this year.
He could 5 touchdowns on Sunday. He'll get it.
He could. Tough.
I could see him getting 4 Sunday.
You could see him going crazy. He hasn't really had that 300-yard game this year that we've somehow gotten accustomed to seeing from him.
He's had 7 100-yard games, which is a Bengals record. So he's just been pretty darn steady.
You want to hear a crazy tweet I got about Jamar Chase?
Oh boy,
that isn't I get where the person's coming from. I don't necessarily agree, but I get where they're coming from. It's he's kind of in the TJ Houshmandzadeh role. He's getting all of these underneath targets and doing a lot of work after the catch. Obviously he's had some downfield stuff, but just comparing the way the Bengals are using him to TJ Houshmandzadeh, which I get where the guy's coming from in suggesting that, because his use has changed this year, especially without Joe.
Sure.
It's funny though, right?
It is. Yeah. It is. Cause it's like TJ Houshmandzadeh on crazy steroids, you know? But I get it. I do get it to a degree.
The TJ Turner snub was another thing that we wanted to get to there. Right. Joe Burrow saying in his presser, I thought that this was pretty on point from Joe. Yes. Sometimes, the first year you should go, you don't go, and you do it again the next year, then the league catches up. The league often a little bit late, but fair to say that he played at a pretty high level for this year and was deserving of, what was he, 3rd alternate? He's down on the list even for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah, 3rd alternate. Just not a big name, and that does matter. Played himself into a contract though. Talk about a guy that they should lock up. I would.
Yeah.
Dax and DJ, you feel good about those Michigan corners. Does Michigan have a safety? Do they have a safety? Go get that guy. I know Ohio State has a safety. That's what everyone's going to say when
people coming into this season were very sick of the Bengals drafting Michigan players because of the Ohio State connection for a lot of Bengals fans, and how it took a little bit of time for Turner and Dax, and who knows what the future holds, right? You never know. But one conversation point that we will get to, not in today's episode, is the offseason decisions for some of these younger guys. Can we get ahead of a contract for once and have it pay off?
Yeah.
And not do the Michael Johnson, Carlos Dunlap. We're going to keep 1 game. The Jonathan Joseph, Leon Hall, we're going to keep 1 game. I mean, I know that's pretty old history at this point, but let's look at the tankathon implications here. James, the results for the Bengals yesterday, Christmas Day, Thursday, pretty good overall. Dallas winning helps. Minnesota winning helps. Yep. They cannot draft behind those teams now. Now the latest they can draft in the first round is going to be 14, I believe.
Yes. Yep.
And if Tampa wins 1 game, then it goes to 13. If Baltimore wins 1 game, then it goes to 12. Miami wins a couple of games. It's a little bit dicier than that. I kind of see 12 as a relatively likely landing spot here, because I kind of just expect them to win these last 2 games.
Yeah.
Unless they bench guys against Cleveland, they feel like they've done enough.
They should.
But home finale, that is not in this team's DNA to bench their star players who people have paid to come see. But With a couple of those losses, the Bengals still 9th for now, but like looks like 12th. If I had to guess at where they land, Kansas City is executing their tank masterfully.
Hate
Chris
it.
Jones jumping off sides on 4th and 2. Miami would need to win, I think, 2 games for the Bengals to be picking if the Bengals win their games ahead of Miami. So that's the 2 teams directly behind Cincinnati. And then Atlanta is also 6 and 9. Their pick is owned by the Rams, but Atlanta would also need to win, I think, a couple of games for the Bengals to be picking ahead of them if the Bengals win their games.
And that's the one that, Atlanta is, they are who they are. And good on the Rams for getting that pick, by the way. But it sucks that the Chiefs might be picking ahead of the Bengals. That's the one that stands out to me as sort of painful, because let's just say you really want Caleb Downs, right? He could be a Chief. And
or
I'm just
Jeremiah Love, your guy, like name a guy.
Not my guy. I don't have a guy.
You don't have a guy yet?
No, I don't know. It's December.
Your
Santa just left.
Led me to believe otherwise about
Jeremy. No, I just everyone is so like, me, man. Everyone is so, it's got to be defense, got to be defense, got to be defense. And then the same people complain that they drafted Shemar Stewart. It's like, it doesn't just have to be defense. They need good players. And so,
this team drafts for need.
I know. Hate it. I hate it so much.
Another conversation for another day. We'll have you covered here after the Bengals play the Arizona Cardinals. Again, just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas if you celebrated yesterday. Hopefully you had a great day. If you celebrated another Hanukkah or another holiday, Hanukkah, the solstice, any of the other winter traditions out there, hope you enjoyed those as well. That's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Until next time, thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.